Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jane McCarthy.
And I'm Mark Hanrahan. Our top story tonight is the blustery conditions, creating some dangerous driving conditions with that blowing snow.
Yeah, we want to send things right over to Tom Sherry in the Weather Center with a closer look at the forecast. Tom?
Yeah, we have the snow that is falling, most of it falling to the south of us. We're seeing a little bit of light snow in southern Spokane County, but you can see in the lower Columbia Basin, that's where we're seeing most of the snow, as you can see. Winter weather advisory in effect everywhere. You see shaded in yellow. That does not include Spokane or Coeur d'Alene, but it does include Shoshone County, eastern Kootenai County, down into Whitman County. That is in effect until tomorrow morning. Could see 3 to 6 inches of snow in those areas that are shaded in yellow. And then I talked about the lower Columbia Basin. Look at that again. That's until 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. 5 to 10 inches of snow. That area shaded in pink could be fall before tomorrow morning. Right now we're at 20 degrees, but it's that strong wind out of the northeast at 15 miles per hour, creating bitter cold wind chills. It feels like it's 6 degrees right now in Spokane, 7 in Deer Park, 3 in Coeur d'Alene and Wallace, and then not as much wind to the west of us. So you can see Moses Lake just at 21. Snow-wise, it does not look like a major snow event for us here in Spokane and areas west of us, but we will get pretty good snowfall in portions of northern Idaho, north central Idaho, and then down into southeastern Washington. You see Moscow and Pullman will get between 3 and 4 inches by tomorrow morning. We're looking for an overnight low of 9. That means with the wind chill, it could drop down even sub-zero. We'll see sunshine, though, on your Tuesday, and a daytime high expected of 25 degrees. I always check the weekend. We continue with colder than average temperatures. Sunny both those days, but highs still remaining below freezing. To put that in perspective, the average high this time of year is 42. I'll check your 7-day forecast in a few minutes and tell you if we're going to finally see temperatures warm up.
Thank you, Tom. And as Tom mentioned, temperatures were in the 20s today in Spokane. Gusty conditions made it feel much colder, actually created some drifting snow as well.
In some areas like the Palouse, entire lanes were covered with deep snow, making for difficult driving conditions. KREM 2 Shayna Waldtower is out in the mobile storm tracker tonight, checking on the conditions now. Shayna?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Jane, it's all this white out here makes it pretty to look at, but driving in all of it is just not ideal at all. For the past few hours, I've been driving around the Palouse and looking at a lot of these driving conditions out here. Looking outside, you can see a lot of the snow that's covered these roads. And again, we're seeing a lot of drifting snow. The wind's blowing the snow into the area. And because the snow is so powdery and light, it's so easy for the wind to blow it right onto the roads, covering up a lot of these lanes. Now, some spots have piled up to rise up to a couple of feet. In just a few minutes ago, there was a car that had spun into the opposite lane of traffic and it got stuck on the side of the road in a pile of snow. And visibility is very limited with the fog and all the blowing snow again that's blowing onto these roads. Now, just north of St. John's, a car and a van got stuck in the middle of the road and it caused a bit of a delay.
With the wind blowing through here, and it created a kind of a haze, and so it was very difficult to see tire tracks, let alone depth or anything of that nature.
Now, it took about an hour to clear everything up there. A tow truck and a couple snow plows were there, but even as they were working, the wind was blowing that snow right back onto the roads and piling it up again. So as it starts getting later and darker, this is only going to make it harder to see these roads. So if you don't have to be out on these roads, it's best to just stay safe and just stay off of them. But we'll continue to bring you updates on all these road conditions as the evening continues. But for now, reporting in Spangle, Shayna Waldtower. I'll send things back in studio.
Shayna, thank you for that report. In other news, singer R. Kelly bonded out of jail tonight after spending the weekend in custody. In court today, his attorney entered a not guilty plea for Kelly, who's charged now with 10 counts of aggravated sexual abuse involving 4 women. 3 of them say they were underage at the time. Kelly has denied any wrongdoing. The singer was acquitted of child pornography charges back in 2008. Kelly came under renewed scrutiny in January after a documentary called Surviving R. Kelly aired.
Washington State is once again suing the Trump administration.
On Friday, the Trump administration proposed changes to Title X. That's the federal program which provides birth control and other health services to millions of low-income Americans.
In Washington, more than 91,000 patients, both men and women, received care through the Title X program in 2017 alone. More than half of these patients were at or below the federal poverty level.
Under the Trump administration's proposal, any organization that provides or refers patients for abortions will not receive federal funding for STD prevention, cancer screenings, or birth control. Ferguson argues this would starve clinics in places where Planned Parenthood is the only medical care women have access to. This is the 34th time Washington has sued the Trump administration. Well, detectives say what started as an argument between two men in a bar ended in murder. It happened early Sunday morning outside the Tipsy Pine Bar that's in Hayden, Idaho.
Police arrested the suspect at the scene, and it turns out the victim was part of an inspiration for a 2014 film. KREM 2's Taylor Vito joins us live in the newsroom tonight with the latest on this case. Taylor?
Well, guys, first off, the man who cops say pulled the trigger is charged with first-degree murder. That was upgraded today. Court documents paint it as a bar fight that escalated. As for the victim, as you mentioned, it's not the first time he's made headlines. This is the victim, 45-year-old Topher Clark. This photo of him is from several years ago, but it was in the early 2000s when his first name appeared in news stories. Clark and a friend were involved in a large marijuana ring and smuggled millions of dollars worth of pot from Canada into North Idaho. It all came crashing down following the 2002 death of a rival drug smuggler in the area, according to reports. Clark and his friend's story were shared in a series of stories in the Inlander and later Rolling Stone magazine. That led to this.
I was this high school dropout, but I ran a disciplined $68 million a year business that employed hundreds of Walmart shopping, Exxon buying Americans.
Kid Cannabis, a 2014 movie based on the true story. That guy on the left, that's Clark's character. But what happened back in 2002 certainly seemed to be well in the rearview mirror this weekend. Court documents show that Clark and friends were at this Hayden bar when Clark and this guy, Scott White, got into an argument. A bartender asked White and his girlfriend to leave, but at some point both he and Clark wound up outside, and Clark had been shot several times. Records show that White was drunk at the time, well over twice the legal limit. When questioned by detectives, White said he couldn't fully remember the incident, but he did admit to firing at Clark. White's bond was set at $1 million. Now, he was originally charged with second-degree murder, but as we mentioned, that was upgraded today. In the newsroom, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
Taylor, thank you. Nurses were among those rallying this afternoon amid contract negotiations with Sacred Heart Hospital. The rally, sponsored by the Washington State Nurses Association, which says it's focused on nurse and patient safety. According to a hospital spokesperson, the two sides are negotiating several issues like pay, workplace violence, and paid time off. Our Alexa Block will have more from both sides and how close they are to a new contract coming up on KREM 2 News at 6 tonight.
Spokane-based Fred's Appliance paid a hefty fine for illegally selling service contracts. The appliance retailer has stores in Washington, Idaho, and Montana. For the past 11 years, they were apparently not registered to sell contracts to make repairs on their appliances. They were ordered to pay back taxes and other penalties on those contracts because they were not registered.
KREM 2's Alexa Block explains what this means for customers and how the company is responding.
Fred's Appliance is as well known as its big red and blue sign. It's the place people go to buy what they need to cook, do laundry, and clean their homes. But Fred's recently got into a sticky situation with the state over the service contracts they sell along with their appliances. A service contract is an agreement between a customer and contractor to do maintenance. According to the Washington State Insurance Commissioner, businesses that make these agreements must register and provide financial statements. This is so the state can make sure businesses actually have the means to honor their agreements. The insurance commissioner says Fred's Appliance was not registered to sell these service contracts, and they have been illegally selling these contracts for about 11 years. Fred's was ordered to pay $450,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest, plus a $10,000 fine. And the appliance retail giant paid their debt and have already applied to be an official service contract provider. A spokesperson for the company said they did not know they had to register to provide these types of contracts. Fred's often offers a service contract for 5 years, compared to the 1 year many manufacturers offer. And if a customer doesn't need repairs after 5 years, they get credit towards another appliance. The insurance commissioner's office says despite all this, the service contracts sold at Fred's are valid and customers should not have any issues. But if they do, they are encouraged to contact the insurance commissioner's office. In Spokane, Alexa Block, KREM 2 News.
Meantime, Gonzaga fans have something to celebrate tonight. The men's basketball team ranked #1 in the country. The team beat BYU this weekend handily. This is the second time this season the Bulldogs have ranked #1. Virginia now sitting at #2. Duke at #3. Congratulations.
Way to go, Zags. How cool is that, right? Kind of spoiled here in Spokane.
Yeah.